This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, everyone. For those of you who are up, I want to take the opportunity just to really put ourselves in the right frame of mind and preparation for what is the most important day of our trip. The primary reason we came to France is for today, Chavtes Tammuz, the yahrzeit of Rabban, the Avihem Shel Yisrael, the yahrzeit of the Rabbi and the father of the Jewish people, Rashi, and we don't use those words lightly. Rashi, of course, is the great Rabbi of Klal Yisrael. If not for Rashi, the Shas would be a Sefer Chosam. It would be a sealed book. Who could make heads or tails of Shas? We wouldn't know not what a question is, not what an answer is, not what the meaning of the lines of the words in the Gemara, not the translation of the words in the Gemara, and not the signon, the flow of the Gemara. Rashi opened up the backbone of the Jewish people to the Jewish people. Yes, today we have all kinds of aids to learn. We have the art scroll, we have the Mesivta, but none of those would be available if not for Pirush Rashi. And then, of course, Rashi ala Torah. Rashi on Chumash is so important. The Chafetz Chaim writes in our generation, Rashi has supplanted the importance of the Targum. While it once was Eshnayim Mikra v'Echad Targum, today the Chafetz Chaim says it's Shnayim Mikra v'Echad Rashi. And we see the importance of Rashi from the number of super commentaries that were written on Rashi. More than 200 Perushim were written on Rashi ala Torah. The Mizrahi writes, every word of Rashi is laden with so much meaning. So now on the bus, I would like to present to you two short segments. One will be about what Rashi's intention was in writing his Perush, and then one a little bit of a legend. There's an interesting thing. Rashi tells us in Bereshis Perek Gimel Posek Ches. Rashi says there are a lot of midrashim about this subject. The Chachamim have already arranged them in the Bereshis Rabbah, and Rashi utters the famous phrase, Va'ani loibasi ella l'pshutoi shel mikra. I've only come to tell you the simple interpretation of the psukim. And this is a very important yesod. Rashi is not a toisus. Rashi is not here to make the sugya complex. Rashi is not giving you an in-depth analysis of how this Gemara could be reconciled with other Gemaras. Rashi is trying to tell you, both al HaTorah and on the Gemara, Pshutoi Shel Mikra. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean Rashi was not a Posek? Now, this is a very important discussion. The Radvaz in Siman Kuf Tes writes in a tshuva, Yesh biyadenu klal gadol ki Rashi mefareshu loy Posek. We have a principle. Rashi was a commentator. He was not a Posek, and therefore we need to rely more on Rambam, Rif, Rush, than we rely on Rashi. This goes so far as the Beis Yosef himself in our Chaim Siman Yud says that we have a machloikes, the Rush and the Rambam. Even though Rashi sides with the Rush, we are going to paskin like the Rambam because Rashi was not a Posek. Rashi was a Mefaresh. Rashi Mefareshu. V'loi paskin. By the way, the Ibn Ezra uses a very interesting expression in describing Rashi. Ibn Ezra says Rashi is Parshandasa, like from the Aseres B'nai Haman, Parshandasa, someone who explained the law. But Rashi was not a Posek. Therefore, the Beis Yosef says, we will follow the Rambam, even though it's the Rush and Rashi versus the Rambam, because Rashi is out of the equation, and the Rambam is more mistaber in this issue, and that is the conclusion of the Beis Yosef. The Chida in the Shem HaGdolim discusses what seemingly is disparaging to Rashi. To say Rashi was a Mefaresh and not a Posek, Rashi is a commentator and not a halachic authority. So the Chida offers the following analogy. There's a Gemara in Baba Basra that Rabbi Asi said to Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan, when you tell us the halacha, how should we act? So Rabbi Yochanan said, don't act until I tell you it's halacha l'maisa. It's not enough when I tell you it's a halacha. If I tell you this is the halacha, you can't follow it. Only when I tell you it's halacha ulamaisa. Rav Nosson Walder is going to make a siyum today on Hayriyos, yeah? In Hayriyos we find the following Gemara. That if someone is giving a shiur, and you listen to the shiur and you follow it, la halacha, and the person giving the shiur did not say it accurately, you are a mazid. The onus is on you. You cannot follow Jewish practice based on something you heard in a shiur. Moreover, if somebody asked the rabbi a shaila, and you overheard, and you follow the psak of that rav, you are negligent. The rav did not give you the psak. Only when the rabbi says, this is the halacha relevant to you in your particular circumstance, only then you can follow the halacha. So the Chida says, there's no question that when Rashi explained the sugya, he felt that within a certain perspective of reasonability, the conclusion that would come out based on the way he explains the sugya is correct. But Rashi never intended to explain the sugya halacha l'maisa. That was not the intent of Rashi. When the Beis Yosef says Rashi is a mefaresh and not a posek, what that means is not that Rashi is not capable of being a posek. It's Rashi never intended to be a posek. Says the Chida, if Rashi writes a halachic ruling in the Sefer HaPardes or the Sefer HaOira, that would have just as much credibility as the Rambam and the Rif. It's just that was not Rashi's kavana. What is Rashi's kavana? Like Rashi himself articulates, Va'ani loibasi ella l'pshutai shel mikra. That is the opinion of Radvaz. That is the opinion of the Beis Yosef. It's important to point out that opinion is not unanimously maintained. The Yishal Shechuvas Halachos Ketanois Chelek Beis Siman Kufta Zayin. He disagrees with Beis Yosef. He says if Rashi explained the sugya a certain way, that means Rashi recognized and realized that if this is how he explained the sugya, the following halacha would come out, and Rashi means you could rely on him, la halacha, just like the Rambam and the Rif. But in general, we do follow the Beis Yosef, that Rashi was mefareshu ve'enoi posek. This is not lignai of Rashi, but this was the area and the realm in which Rashi's commentary is used. As we mentioned, Rashi is avihen v'rabban shel Yisrael, which we will discuss further. And here we're all going. You know, when people travel to Eretz Yisrael, to Kever Avos, people travel all over the world to the graves of their ancestors. At least for Ashkenazim, Rashi in all likelihood is your great-grandfather. As we mentioned, in the 11th century, there are only between 5,000 and 10,000 Ashkenazic Jews, and almost 80% of Ashkenazim come directly from Rashi. So Rashi is not only Avihen Shel Yisrael in a figurative sense, Rashi is actually Avihen Shel Yisrael. Okay, so that's just some important thoughts about Rashi's role as Mefarish.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.